This is the Zac Anesbury Show.
Welcome. On today's podcast clip, we have Professor Billy Sung from Curtin University, Perth, Australia. Just out of curiosity, did you ever publish your research from your honours?
That is a very good question. So, since my honors supervisor is a psychologist, I would assume that he probably wouldn't hear this podcast. No, so it's interesting. So, if I say this, you would probably go, "What?" So, we actually did 5 studies in my honors.
Yeah, that is a what moment. Yeah.
But the 5 study is perception psychology. So they are like the sample size is like 20 to 30 each study. So it's a very easy, normally A/B testing, sometimes factorial design, kind of experimental design. But basically, my honor supervisor, which I totally respect and really admired, Jason Tangin, he's a very, very talented cognitive scientist and forensic psychology researcher. And so we actually did the 5 study on a face illusion. So long ago that I don't even probably remember that. I think it's called the face distorted effect, so FFDE. And so a fast face distortion effect. So basically when you flash sequentially faces at people, so if you're on a screen and I show you a face and they're aligned, and they're different faces, what happens is if I flash them really quickly to you, you'll start to see the face deform. And basically that's quite interesting because you would say that, okay, well, I perceive the world as an objective world, right? But objectively, the faces are not distorted. But if I flash these normal faces in a speed, you will start to actually, your perception of the face actually start to be deformed. So you actually see, a big nose with small eyes and, wide jaw, so on and so forth, which is quite interesting. So we actually, they actually found the effect through another honest student before me, just randomly because they were actually lining up faces for a forensic psychology study. And because of that, he has to click next and then a face will flash up and then he'll fixate on the face to actually align the face, facial structure, click next, and then the next face comes up and they have to align the picture, so on and so forth. What's interesting is that they found that when that happens, that's where the fast flash face distortion effect comes up. So for my honors, they wanted to characterize it. So they want to find the boundary condition. So when does it happen? When does it not happen? So we actually conducted a series of 5 studies to do that, and also to look at what is the psychological mechanism on it. So basically, we were able to attribute it, I guess, wouldn't say confidently, but at least some descriptive evidence to show that it is actually what we call a shape contrast effect. So it will have the same effect if you flash shapes. So if I flash a square and then flash a circle right after it, and then a square and a circle, what happens is the square will start to look like a circle. The circle will look like a square, but objectively they are square and circles. So we actually were able to find some descriptive evidence to show that, yes, the flash face distortion effect is really just another typical shape contrast effect. Now, you can see how technical perception psychology can be, but in some sense in perception psychology, it's actually quite interesting because that means that we actually use shape perception to actually understand face perception, which a lot of researchers in face perception will discredit because they will say, no, face is a totally new category of object. And so we have a different area or different brain area and brain mechanism to interpret them and to process them. Our study actually showed that's not the case. Mm-hmm. Now, why wasn't it published? So my supervisor is a very, very rigorous scientist. So he accepted the fact that, yes, we found all the boundary effect in boundary correction, great. But we weren't able to find the most robust and replicable findings for the psychological mechanism. So although we have a significant result, it wasn't a very significant result. And if we extrapolate it and we do some power analysis, he said, let's replicate it. And when we replicate it with well, in some sense, that honors project at the last study was a bit overpowered. And there was only, I think, 50, so already overpowered. So you can see how big the effect size is. So he said, well, we need to underpower it. So we need to make it less. So, but then we found that it becomes not significant. And so he's like, no, we're not publishing this. What's interesting is, I think 5 years ago, I came back to him and I said, hey, Jason, do you remember me? Like from, well, that was at the time, 5 years ago. So when I did my honors, it was another 5 years ago. So I said 5 years ago, do you want to publish this paper? Because, even if we don't publish the last study, let's just publish the fourth study. And he was really against it. He was like, no. We can't just not publish one study and publish the other four. And so, no, I guess the long answer is no, we haven't published the paper on flash phase distortion effect, and that's the reason. And I respect that. I actually learned a lot from him, and a lot of research integrity and respect for research from him. And that is exactly the attitude that I carry with my research and with my lab that I run right now. So make sure everything is replicable. If it's not replicable, we retract the paper. Most of my papers, you will see that there is multiple studies that really replicate the main effects. We don't analyze the data before it is fully collected. The only thing that I haven't caught on to is the pre-registering studies, which is sometimes it's quite a pain in the backside in some sense. Like there's so much administrative process in the university already. Don't add another layer on my research.
Yeah, I think a huge amount of credit goes to you, and I guess your honor supervisor as well, that you do have such high research integrity, because you do see, not as often as you would think, but you'd see papers that are retracted because it's found out that the researcher maybe hit a few respondents that then changed their results from being not significant to significant. Or cherry picked some of the data, or like you said, maybe have hidden a study or something like that. So I think it's a huge credit to you and your team and your research ethics that you actually do sort of keep doing that. So I don't know if you've read much of my research. I've read some of yours. We do something similar in terms of we try to replicate something as much as possible. And then we'll show that it hasn't just occurred for like one brand or one category in one country, but it's occurring over and over and over and over again. And that's kind of what we see as a bit of we have enough confidence in it to sort of share it with the rest of the world. So yours is kind of like those built-in studies building on it. Ours is like one big study, but analyzing as much as we can in that study. So I think we have the same end goal, but come at it from a different approach.
Yes, and I also I have actually read a number of your research and the amount of data. Like I really like how you and I guess your research team and also your research institution has access to really big data. Is that actually it's real world data, right? And so you also have to one step ahead because you have the external validity. So you have the ecological validity, whereas yes, you can replicate a finding once or twice, and that's internal validity. But you guys actually have the external and ecological validity within it as well. So so kudos to you guys as well.
Well, you flatter me that you've read my papers.
Hey guys, it's Zac Anesbury here with just a couple of quick reminders. If you've enjoyed today's podcast, then make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode. There are plenty more interviews to come with some of the world's leading marketing academics and practitioners. You do not want to miss these. In the meantime, if you're looking for another way to connect, then follow me on Twitter at Zac Anesbury. That is ZACANESBURY. For my take on the marketing issues of the day.
That was the Zac Anesbury Show.